Growing up, we were always a part of just different organizations. I always volunteered, with different service organizations like Special Olympics and that sort of thing. But then the older I got, the more I realized that there's this incredible system, there's this incredible network, and it's statewide, and there are so many different stakeholders that have a role in disability services and empowering people with developmental disabilities. And having a sister, an older sister who just, her goal is really to be famous, and she wants to live in the limelight. We took on a couple different speaking engagements and were able to speak at the awards ceremony for the DD Council in fall 2017. And I realized that I wanted to be a part of this. I got to meet some of the folks that were on the council previously, and got to really understand the work that the council does, and realize that our vision and our dream for our family is actually something that is being pursued by different families, different organizations across the state, and I wanted to be a part of the conversation to see what was happening and see how I could apply my personal life experience to maybe hopefully creating more opportunities for individuals statewide. So just kind of went through that process, and here we are, and it's very exciting to be here.
Yeah, so for me, being on the council really has been a big learning curve. I think for me as a sibling, we sort of moved through that. I'm starting to transition from being the helper, the playmate, someone who's just kind of there to support your sibling, to really thinking about long term what kind of support structures are in place for my sister, and what will we need to really develop as a family in terms of her plan of care. So for me, being on the council has been a great way for me to connect with other people who have an IDD, and also with some of those players that provide representation from support agencies across the board. So I've felt really grateful to be able to just have a seat at the table. I think I've spent these past 3 meetings really learning a lot.
Taking it all in. Yeah. It's a lot of information.
I feel like it's alphabet soup. I'm trying to get all the acronyms down. So I've just been blown away by the tremendous impact the work the council is doing through some of the grants that they're funding. It's been amazing to see the work that happens in this room has a tangible impact on the lives of our fellow citizens across the state, which has been really inspiring.
I was just going to ask, remind me how old your sister is?
She is 35.
So, and my sister just turned 35 in January, and I think one thing that Allison touched on that's really important is that, especially having the sibling voice, we're living this in real time with our own families, and so when we are sitting around a table and discussing initiatives that are, when we're discussing these initiatives that are possible or actually present, I think personally, I look at my sister and I look at how other individuals like her, other families like ours, could be benefiting from this. Like you said, long term, that long-term system of support and care and opportunities, and so that's just really interesting and powerful. And also, I think that there's a move toward sibling empowerment as well, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we're the first 2 siblings to be on the council, at least by title. I'm sure there were maybe some others that were involved under maybe a different title, but I think that as we look at that relationship and start to see the aging of our parents' generation and what does change in terms of long-term care, or at least support, and whether it be financial or what have you, having these conversations early on, and maybe even being able to sort of set a precedence for how these conversations will continue and then be handed on to the next and younger generation of siblings, I think is really important. So really just being able to kind of make a mark, I guess, just as a sibling is valuable.
I totally agree with that. I think, we're learning as we go. And I think in that process, like I mentioned earlier, we're bringing our own experience to the table. And so I think just continuing to really represent the sibling perspective and how the decisions that are made in this room are going to impact us as siblings and our families. I think I'd love to see us continue to rally the sibling experience and just create more of a community among us. I really found out about the DD Council through a grant that was funded by the council, which was NC SIBS, and that was a really the first time outside of those SIB shops that we did when we were younger and being involved in Special Olympics as a supporter. It was the first time in a long time that I was able to get back around the table with other siblings, and that community was incredible in terms of resource sharing, just sort of a camaraderie across our experience. experiences. So I'd love to see the council continue to really extend their outreach to engage the sibling community, because I think we can be really powerful advocates, and
Absolutely.
I think selfishly it's brought a lot of value to me feeling confident and capable in navigating what it means to be a sibling as an adult and not just a 8-year-old helper, right? It's things are getting real, I feel like now.
And I think that's it. I think that each of our families could be viewed as this sort of microcosm of the greater system of supports, and from that perspective, I one day hope to be able to kind of look to my own parents and say with confidence, we've got this.
We got this.
Not in a selfish way, not in an arrogant way, but just to be able to say, we can take the baton, and you don't have to worry about this. And not that there's a burden per se, but that there are different factors that parents of individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities have to consider that maybe other parents might not, and to be able to sort of assume that role and say again back with confidence to my parents, like, my sister's going to be taken care of. Don't sweat it. I think is really important, and to be able to kind of help that tone sort of generate from our work on the council back into our communities, I think is really important.
Yeah, it's just been interesting because our parents have had 35 years of experience of being a caretaker, and I'm still not a caretaker full time for my siblings. So the learning curve is steep for me, but I think being part of a community like this and knowing that there are advocates and resources is just helps me feel supported. I think in that experience.
And there's a letting go too that I think navigating through this has shown us, or shown our family, and it's not just about what we're doing, but also kind of helping maybe coach our parents a little bit in letting go. I mean, there's
transition.
I think so many times parents say, I don't want to have to do this. I want to be able to let go of this, but it's easier said than done. That's what I hear from so many parents, not just our parents, but I think that again, we're sort of setting sort of a precedence that I hope will resonate with other families.
Yeah, I think the more learning that we can have, we can hopefully provide a better template, but sort of a toolkit, I think, for siblings as they move into this caretaking transition.
That sounds like an initiative right there. A sibling toolkit. That sounds like something. That sounds like something right there. Sibling toolkit.
Yeah, but I think it can be overwhelming because we're navigating all this for the first time, and so I think the council has done a tremendous job of creating kind of a clearinghouse of resources and voices and perspectives. That's a great place to start for us as we move into that. So I feel just really grateful to be at the table in this incredible community of support and advocacy.
Right. I have not met one person through the council that hasn't said, let me know what I can do to help, and that's sort of like a very broad extension of service and assistance, but really it's just whatever expertise someone in the council has, they're willing to offer that, whether it just be on a personal conversation level or a professional development level, whatever. And I think that's really, really special, and it is a privilege, I think, to be at that table.
I'm Allison Dodson from Boone, North Carolina.
And I'm Ryan Rotundo from Asheville, North Carolina.
Hi, Corey.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were waving. I was like, who's she waving
a sibling high five.
That'll make the outtakes, that one. Mark.